I recently was censored by TikTok for my video that I had about Kyle Rittenhouse. They took down a video I posted about 60 seconds of me saying similar things to what I said on the podcast. And they said it was harassment and bullying. Listen to this clip, Hannah, of what I said that was so dangerous and controversial. Take a listen.
Okay. Hakeem Jeffries, a progressive congressman, literally tweeted while the trial was going on, lock up Kyle Rittenhouse and throw away the key. And he's the same guy that rails against mass incarceration, and I agree with him on some of it. But now, before the trial's even over, they're calling for this guy to be locked up and throw away the key. Like, they've already reached their conclusions.
No,
they didn't give him a fair shake.
It's a very...
And they lied about it being a white supremacy thing when it's a white dude that shot 3 other white people. The entire thing is bizarre. And it's,
out of self-defense.
Right. Yes.
In my
that's
opinion.
Most important.
Right.
And that's the thing that gets lost here, is you don't have to either think he's a hero who did everything right and made amazing decisions, or he's an evil white supremacist who should go to jail. The truth is, I would never let my teenager go to a riot zone with a weapon. That was a bad decision to make, but in the moment he defended himself.
Correct.
And he wasn't some mass shooter white supremacist, and he should be acquitted.
I agree with you. I agree with you completely. I don't think he did the right thing, like by going there, but I think in his mind, he was doing a noble thing, you know, like he was trying to protect people, and then he wound up just having to protect.
Do you feel bullied?
I don't, and honestly, I think that was the most, like, no offense, but like milquetoast explanation of like everything that went down. Like, you know, sometimes when you hear about people getting kicked off certain social media platforms, you're like, but what did you say? Like, and sometimes they really are saying some like crazy stuff. I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't let that be on my Facebook wall either. But that, not even an ounce of an element that would make sense for it to get censored.
Well, and what bothered me not so much was it getting flagged, because algorithms aren't perfect. What really bothered me was that when I requested a manual appeal, and I didn't even throw a stink about it publicly until I requested the appeal, then the appeal was reviewed by a human and denied. So a human at TikTok listened to that video and said that it violated their harassment and bullying. And I'm like, if you do not have, even if you're not even allowed to offer the same verdict reached by a jury of his peers in the justice system, and a pretty mainstream conservative or right-leaning argument about like self-defense, and I wasn't even glorifying him or worshiping him. Not that those people should be banned. I don't think they should, but I wasn't even doing that. And so I found it really disturbing. I will say the story had a happy ending. They, without any response to me or my appeals or anything, just reinstated my video because I raised a stink about it. I wrote an article about it, which I'll put in the show notes. But, and here's my problem, Hannah. I'm a blue check journalist on Twitter, and I can get people to retweet, and news articles were written calling out TikTok for taking down this video. People like me and you are not going to suffer too much from like little acts of tech censorship because we do have the resources to like raise a stink about it. Mm-hmm. I'm more concerned for like all the people out there who are just, you know, not journalists. They don't have big followings. They don't have big accounts to retweet them, but they post their opinions on stuff like this and they get shut down by the woke people that run these companies in liberal bubbles. And I'm worried about them, not myself. Like, this is not a victim thing. Like, whatever. It's just one video. They have the right to do it, but I think it's wrong. But I'm more concerned about the general principle that these spaces, Gen Z is all about TikTok. And we need to be able to bring arguments to them that aren't just standard left-wing talking points.
I think that's absolutely right. I have such an issue when people see a problem and their immediate go-to is like throw their principles under the bus and use government to try to solve it. That doesn't mean that we don't agree there is a problem. I don't like how a lot of these tech companies are moderating their content. You know, I think about how funny it is that they flagged you for harassment and bullying. And then I think about all the times that I actually get harassment and bullying, like get people finding my phone numbers, calling me. I got attacked when I first launched Based. A bunch of like alt-right white nationalists found out that I had launched the show called Based, and like they think that's their word, which is so stupid. But they started attacking me, like putting all kinds of anti-Semitic stuff in my comments, attacking my nose, which like I have a pretty good nose, excuse you, like so rude. But as a whole, like none of that got flagged or taken down, right? By anybody but me. Like that was totally allowed to stand. And then you see the apps come in and take you down for that kind of content. So it is really annoying and problematic. And what we do need to do is remove government from the equation so that we do have more competition. We do have more alternatives to turn to. Even right now, we do have options out there. Part of it is on us. You know, people tend to not go to the smaller apps. Like we need to start making conscious choices about where we put our resources and our time. So at the end of the day, I think there are many solutions to this issue. I even think speaking out, as you and I have constantly done, does make an impact. We know that Facebook and Google do pay attention to this. Ultimately, they don't want to lose Republicans or conservatives or libertarians from their platforms, because then they lose half of their market value. And so they aren't going to go so far off this path that it really gets to a point where we can't exist in these worlds. But I think the more we speak out and push back, the better.
We still do have options. Like when TikTok banned my video, I went and tweeted about it and made a storm on Twitter and tagged TikTok support. And then I also wrote an article for the Washington Examiner about it, where I'm a columnist. And it's like, we have more options than people think. I don't understand when people say Facebook is a monopoly, because it's like, what do they have a monopoly on? They do have a monopoly on Facebook, the same way Taco Bell has a monopoly on Taco Bell. But, and that's not a great example, because Taco Bell has more competitors than Facebook, but Twitter is a competitor of Facebook. Snapchat is a competitor of Facebook. YouTube is a competitor of Facebook. News websites are a competitor of Facebook. This podcast is indirectly a competitor of Facebook, right? It's all about where people put their attention and where messages can get out, and video and text and arguments and articles and all this stuff. And it's like, we actually do have more options than we tend to think. And so I think some of this catastrophizing, and I do think it's a legit problem, big tech censorship, absolutely. But some of the catastrophizing about it that leads people to toss their principles by the wayside, I think isn't really based in reality.
I agree. They have a very myopic view of what's happening around them. And ultimately, I remember Facebook actually did die for a day, a month or two ago. And what did everybody do? They ran to Twitter to talk about it. And it's like, clearly, we're all still here without Facebook. We all still have options for social media today, even though Facebook is down. You like Facebook is the issue, that you want to use their product. And so at the end of the day, I really do think this comes down to personal choices. If you don't want to use Facebook, don't. There are plenty of alternatives you can go use. But at the end of the day, most people are actually pretty happy with the services they're getting from Facebook or Twitter or some of these other competitors, or they wouldn't be using them. And secondarily, they have a pretty limited view of what the actual numbers show. So people always put Twitter as a competitor to Facebook, but users wise, it's not even the top 10 of largest social media platforms out there. And so they really just have this kind of biased view even on what the market does look like currently.